I'm just, stupid dog, and life can be hard. Just the other day, I was walking down an alley. This is an alley I've walked down 100 times before. It's the alley behind the manor house where the ash wagon used to come to take up all the ash from the coal or the wood. But it was mostly coal, but it was like, you know, some people converted over to wood chips, wood pellets, even back in the 1920s. But basically, it was like ash wagon. The alleys were for the ash wagon to come through to take up the ashes for the people who burned coal to keep their houses warm in the winter in Pennsylvania. I'm Alex Stupid Dog. I was a puppy at this point. A rooster came out and pecked me hard. He pecked me right in my haunches. I said, "I'm going to bite you, you stupid rooster." The rooster was like, "I will peck out your eyes and you'll be blind." I knew I could have bit that rooster and probably killed him, but I was like, I don't want to be blind. The rooster was like, it's a trade-off. If you want to kill me, you're going to be blind. I was like, oh my God. But anyways, in these alleys, that's where everything went down. There was drug deals. There was introduction to drugs. One of these guys I was a puppy. I'm Alex Stupid Dog. I still had my balls. So this is what's so great about this take. I still had my balls. I had balls back then. I was a little puppy with balls. I don't even know if my balls had distended. I don't know if my balls had dropped. I'm not even sure if my balls had dropped, but I had balls. Maybe I had precursor to balls, but I had balls. I was a bald dog. I had balls. I was a bald dog. So whatever. Anyways, this drug pusher came in and he was sprinkling sulfur on the ground. And I watched all these little kids with their bikes. They were wheeling up and down. They were driving up and down the alleyway behind the manor house where the ash wagon would come and collect all the ash from the coal burning furnaces that everybody had. And this is a manor house in western Kentucky in a posh elitist neighborhood where that's what you got to understand. The posh elitist people, they're decades. They're not even decades. They're centuries ahead of time. They got the dentistry. They were doing brain operations back in Egypt. They were boring into brains, helping people get, I don't know what they were trying to do, but anyways. Anyhow, in the alleys, that's where it all went down, because the alleys was where you had the elitists who were centuries ahead of time, living centuries into the future, and the poor, regular, working class folks that worked for them, and also their neighbors and all this crap. There was a conglomerate. I mean, the original diversity was all pure white people of different economic means. Anyways, out there in the alleyways, I was a puppy. I was an Alex Stupid Dog puppy. I had my balls. I watched this guy come through. He was dropping sulfur on the ground. I was like, sulfur, what? I watched some of the little white kids come out. They were starting horking down, breathing down sulfur. They were getting stoned and high off of sulfur, straight sulfur. They were snorting sulfur off the ground in the alleyways behind the ash wagon. I don't want to talk about it. It made me so despondent. I was like, oh my God. They didn't have opiates then. They didn't have no opiates. They didn't have no whatever the other thing was. Nobody knew what was going on. They're like, oh my God, the kids, they're walking around. They're like so stupid. They're like throwing lawn darts up in there or horseshoes up in there and clonking themselves on the head. They're turning themselves into retards. They're getting a horseshoe smash on the temple or the cranium, or maybe they're having a lawn dart just give themselves a lobotomy. They're turning into retards, half retarded kids, because they're snorting sulfur that some weirdo guy came through and sprinkled. All right, so anyways, this is what I want to tell you. I'm Alex Stupid Dog. I was a little puppy. I had my balls, so that's where it was really tough. But anyways, there was a dog. The dog's name was Spear. The dog's name was Spear, like you throw a spear in the ground. A spear through the air and, like caveman would shoot a mastodon or antelope with a spear. This dog's name was Spear because his owners thought, he exemplified spear chucking, throwing a spear and killing something, harvesting game with a spear. Anyways, this dog's name was Spear. They kept him tethered to a chain linked, or a chain, links of a chain. Anyways, this little boy rode up and down the alleyway, we already discussed the alleyway where they harvested the coal, the ash wagon came up and down to get the coal ash. Some people burned wood. Some people even back then in the 1920s had, chips or pearls or what kind of wood you would burn in the coal burning. I don't know. Anyways, the kid, he rode his bike up and down the alleyway, the ash wagon alleyway, and Spear would bark and yell at him and say, "Get out of here, you doofus! You don't want to get anything. You don't want to have anything to do with us. We're rich, elitist, posh neighborhood dwelling people." And that's back when you had the manor house had the big corridor. The manor house had the giant corridor, a little phone at the end of the corridor because you had all the people coming in. All the merchants had to come in through this alleyway they built right in the middle of the manor house to, get all the produce, get all the whatever you had to keep the manor house running. And you had one phone at the end, a beautiful posh, artistically done, craftsman done table to have the phone sitting on so you could call the merchants so you could tell them to deliver. They delivered out in the alleyway. They walked in this big giant tunnel. It's not a tunnel. They built a hallway into the manor house to accommodate all the merchants. But that's how they, that was a big part of everything. Anyways, usually people put a dog out there. It was a Belgian Shepherd. It was some kind of a, dog that had a length of chain to prevent him from biting people. But this boy, he was riding his bike up and down. He was like from the new breed. He was like from the mercantile people. He was like the new generation of wealth, the burgeoning middle class, the bourgeoisie. Look that up, everybody. The bourgeoisie. Anyways, the bourgeoisie. This boy was riding his, I don't know if it was a flexible flyer, 10-speed bicycle. He was riding up and down the alleyway to make the dog bark at the manor house here in western Kentucky, where the men would come back up and down to get the coal ash. It was the alleyway. They pick up the garbage. They pick up the coal ash. This kid was riding his bicycle up and down the alleyway. So I'm a stupid dog. I didn't have no balls back then. I was like, man, this dog is going to rip this kid apart. This kid is pretty ballsy. I didn't know. I had my balls back then, but I was like, oh my God, something as bad is going to happen. I watched as my master, the man, his dad went out and lengthened the chain of the dog Spear. Spear was a Belgian Shepherd that they whipped and beat. They made him mean. So he wanted to get a hold of this kid who was riding his 10-speed bike. I think that's when Schwinn first came out. Maybe it was a Schwinn. He was riding up and down the alleyway. One time I heard him say, hey, to me, he said, I'm a stupid dog. I was a puppy. He said, hey, there's a bunch of little tadpoles that are about to get dehydrated in this pothole. Tell your master to bring in a couple drinks of water and splash it in there so maybe these tadpoles could turn into frogs before the drought kills them off. I always thought, oh my God, this kid, he's a pretty, he's an erstwhile youth. I thought this kid, he's an erstwhile youth. Anyways, I watched as my master, the man, when he was a little kid, his dad went out and lengthened the chain of Spear, the Belgian Shepherd, and Spear, once he got like about 8 more feet, he grabbed hold of that kid's ass and he ripped his underwear straight out of his pants. This kid had corduroys on. He was riding his 10-speed Schwinn bike up and down, hitting his little bell and his little thing, twing, 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 twing. He was like driving the dog crazy. spear the dog. The man went out there. The man's dad went out there in our manor house in the alleyway where the people came to pick up the garbage and the ashes from the coal-burning furnace. We had to keep our manor house warm in western Kentucky. And you know what happened? This dog bit that kid right in his ass, ripped his underwear right out of his pants, his corduroy pants. And no one even knew what happened until the boy's mom came up and she was knocking on the door. And I'm a little puppy. I saw this and I was like, oh my God, it was stained glass windows bordering the front door of the manor house there in western Kentucky. And this woman came over, she said she had in a paper bag, she had her little boy's underwear. And my master, the man, I don't know how old the man was. He was 13, 14, 16. His dad was like, what do you want? She's like, your dog bit my son's ass. And my master's dad said, you little son of a bitch son was peacocking my dog running his 10-speed. And she said, oh, I'm going to sue you. He said, you can sue me, bitch. I don't give a rat's ass. See what happens. I'm a lawyer. She's like, you're not a lawyer. He goes, I guess I'm not a lawyer. All my friends are lawyers. We're going to drum you out of the local establishments. You're not going to be able to join the local country club. You won't be able to get to go golfing at the very most posh elitist. All your posh elitist status is going away. I lengthened that chain so your boy could get taught a lesson. She broke open this paper bag, had his bloody underwear in it. She said your dog ripped his underwear right off his ass. And my master's dad, the man's man, looked at her and said, yeah, that's a beautiful thing. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. And you could go put that in your pipe and smoke it. You walk up on the highest hill you can find, and you can sit down Indian style and wait till thunder and lightning slaps you in your head. I don't give a shit what you do, bitch. Get off my fucking property before I slap you upside your head with a rolled up newspaper. And this woman left. She never came back. She never said nothing to my master's dad, the man's man. This all happened from the man's man. This was a man's man situation, and the man's man took care of it. But he was right, because the little kid was peacocking the dog. And he was, asking for trouble. And she was like, I will show up here on your doorstep with a pair of my son's bloody underwear that your dog ripped off his ass? And the man was like, guess what, bitch? Your little fucking stupid fucking son, he should have had his underwear ripped off his ass. He should have had his underwear ripped off his ass and shoved down his throat and choked out until he almost died. Then they pulled the underwear out and then he puked and somebody slaps him in his ass with some thorn bush, a thorn bush whip, and send this kid packing off home. And if you're not careful, that's what's going to happen to you. She knew right then and there. She escaped. The man's dad. And I'm a puppy. I saw it all. And if I didn't see it all, I could harness some of it from my dog remembrance. But anyways, this is what happened out in western Kentucky. It almost became a feud, but it died down. But then, like 10 years later, I think the descendants of that little boy, or maybe it was that boy when he was a drunken imbecile, they burned down the man's barn. They burned down the man's barn. I mean, once you burn down the man's barn, once you burn down the man's barn, come on. The man's barn burner? The man's barn burner? Nobody should have to deal with that. That should not exist. That should not exist in our culture. But anyways, back then I was just a little puppy. And I had my balls, which was great. I had balls. It makes me a little sad to remember when I had balls during all this, like the majority of my life, 98% of my life when I didn't have no balls. But whatever. It's okay. It is all right. It's okay. Don't even worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. Don't. As far as I could say, it's que sera, sera, whatever. It's all right. Don't worry about it.